What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here. Welcome, and I hope you guys are doing well. So what have I got for you guys today? Well, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of fusions versus guaranteed events versus 2x events. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to make a better informed choice about how to use your resources. All right, guys, let's go ahead and start with the topic of fusion since we have a fusion going on right now. So what are all the pros and cons of using your resources for fusions? So the first thing to note about fusions is they are broadly resource intensive. So you don't need like a ton of one specific resource, but you do need a lot of pretty much everything. So I'd say a fair statement would be that fusions are not easy to finish. Now there are a ton of variances between the different fusions that we've had. Some are much easier while others are much harder. But I think broadly speaking, it's fair to say they are not easy to finish. And another thing to consider is that the point requirements for completing fusions seem to be getting higher and higher all the time. So they'll never get easier, they're only going to get harder. So if you're the kind of person that hoards resources a lot, then yeah, fusions might not be too hard for you. But if you're not a hoarder, then yeah, it can be kind of tough to complete a fusion. And most of the time, the biggest pay-to-win bottlenecks for fusions are Summon Rush and Champ Chase. So if you don't have enough shards saved up, you might not be able to complete those events. Another thing to consider is that even though beforehand, a lot of times we're given out the event schedule like you see here, this doesn't tell us the specific point requirements or allocation for the specific events themselves. So until an event is actually live, we won't know how many points are required to get our specific rare, epic, or fragment. So what I'm saying basically is just knowing the event schedule beforehand doesn't tell you if you can actually complete it with the resources that you have, because we don't know the points required to complete any of the events until they actually start. Now on to a few positive things about fusions. Firstly, you pick the champ. It's not random. You know who it is, you know who you're going for. And player releases their kits as well beforehand, so we can decide whether or not we think that champ is good. And if you think about it, a lot of the meta champs that we have right now were fusions. So if you think about it, Rhodos, Foley, Brogni, Tormund, Pixneal. All right, maybe not that last one, but you guys get what I'm saying. And that leads into our next issue, guys. So check out for a second all the legendary fusions that we've ever had in this game. Notice on this list, clearly they're not all meta champs. In fact, if I'm being honest, some of these champs kind of suck. Now I know what some of you guys are saying. How is that an issue that some fusions suck? You already said that we pick our champs, right? So I'm just gonna pick the good ones to do and avoid the sucky ones. Oh child, if life was that simple. No one knows beforehand with 100% certainty whether or not a champ is gonna be S tier or trash. I know we'd all love to think that we can predict it even looking at their kits, but the honest truth is, no, we cannot predict it. Killian the Lucky is straight up garbage. I wasted my resources fusing him because I thought he might be useful, and it turns out he is not useful at all. And I think if you're honest with yourself, there were some champs that you thought could have been good but ended up being really bad. And on the flip side, some champs that you thought were gonna be really good who are actually not that good. And guys, that's okay. Hindsight is always 20/20. But unfortunately, when we're having to choose whether or not we want to start on a fusion, we don't have any hindsight at all. All we're doing is trying to predict or guess with the best estimations that we can whether or not this champ is gonna be good. And a lot of times, we're wrong. So that's something to consider, guys. A champ that you thought would be good and that you spent a lot of resources fusing ends up being not that good and being a waste of all those resources. Now, counter argument to the sucky fusion issue would be that, you know what, a lot of times these sucky fusions get buffed in the future. I mean, look at Skull Lord Vargol after his buff where his decreased max HP works against bosses. I mean, he's pretty good now, right? But let's not forget Player's track record at buffing champions. It's as hit and miss as the fusions themselves. I mean, look at Pixneal here. I mean, she got a buff, and is she useful? No. And look at Alexander here. He got a buff like even before he was released because everyone thought he was so weak. And is he useful now? No. Now he's not a fusion, but still. Just because a player buffs somebody does not mean they're going to be good. Alright guys, those were the pros and cons to fusions. Let's move on to the pros and cons of guaranteed champ events. So here was our most recent guaranteed legendary event, getting Riho Bone Spear after spending 90 Void Shards. So what is the first issue with guaranteed champ events? Well, the first issue is that they are specifically resource intensive. Remember I said with fusions, they're generally resource intensive. You need to have a lot of different resources at your disposal. Well, with guaranteed champ events, you need to have a lot of one specific resource, and that is shards. So for non-void legendaries out of ancients, you're gonna need 150 ancient shards. For non-void legendaries out of sacred shards, you're gonna need 15 sacred shards. And for void legendaries, you're gonna need 90 void shards. So the first issue is really with low spenders or free-to-play players. Do you have the willpower to save up that many shards? So for some people, this is easy because they don't get that much dopamine out of pulling shards and pulling champs. But for people, I mean like me, honestly, it's really fun to pull champs. And yeah, I get that dopamine rush. So it's actually really hard for me to save up, 150 ancient shards, 90 void shards, 15 sacreds. It's quite hard, even for someone like me. So of course, guys, if you're willing to pay, then this is not an issue at all. It's really an issue for low spenders or free-to-play players. And now continuing on with the theme of low spenders or free-to-play players, it can be hard to accumulate that many shards, even if you're willing to save them, unless you're downing Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare every day in your clan boss, and your clan finishes that clan boss, so you get double rewards. So if you're in a weak clan or your clan boss team is weak, it can be really hard to get those shards in the first place, even if you're willing to save them once you get them. So now let's talk about some positives. So same thing with the fusions, you can pick the champion that you want to summon. It's not random. You choose who you want to get. Another great thing is these champions have been out for a while. So whoever you get for a guaranteed champ, people have used that champion and probably posted some reviews on them somewhere. So that's really good that you can get information on them by people who have actually used the champion. So it's not like a fusion where everyone's speculating. People have actually used these champions, so you can figure out in a more informed way if it'll help your account. Our next issue deals with the quality of champions released as guaranteed champions. So here you see a list of all the legendary and epic champions that have been released as guaranteed champs. So guys, does anything stand out to you as far as the quality of these champs? Well, in my opinion, what stands out is, firstly, none of these guys suck. If you just compare this list with the list of fusion champs, it should be obvious that there's a big quality difference. None of these champions are bad champions. Compared to fusion champions, some of them are really, really bad. So if someone knew nothing about this game and asked me what's the easiest way to get good legendary and epic champions, I would be very comfortable in saying save your shards for guaranteed champ events. Why? Because they never suck. But that's not the end of the story. Take a look at this list again and think about them and mentally compare them to the list of fusion champs. Even though none of these champs suck, none of these champs are S tier champs. So the thing is, you'll never get a Sifi, a Rotos, a Duchess, a Brogni as a guaranteed legendary champion. The thing is, some S tier champs were fusions, but no S tier champs were guaranteed champs. Now guys, when I say Plarium will never release S tier champs as guaranteed champs, you guys know that I'm going off past history. They didn't tell me any of this, but just looking at what they've done so far, it seems that there's a theme here. Release very good champions as guaranteed champions, but not S tier champions. And as far as those S tier epics like Demitha, Man-Eater, or Seer, if you think they're gonna ever release them as guaranteed champs, I would say don't hold your breath. So that is the issue with guaranteed champions. They range from good to very good. No one is a Vault Guardian, and yet no one is an S tier champ either. So those are issues to consider if you just want to focus on guaranteed champ events. And lastly, guys, I want to compare 2x summoning events to fusions and those guaranteed champ events. So first off, the main benefit to using your shards for 2x events is that this is the least resource intensive compared to guaranteed champ events and fusion events. Think about all the resources it takes to complete a fusion or to get a guaranteed champ, like 150 ancients. Whereas if you're talking about a 2x event, yeah, you could use one shard, whatever it is, and get your legendary. It can be as easy and simple as that. And as far as champ quality goes, it could be anybody. So it's going to be similar to the fusions, where you can get a real game changer, an S tier champ, or a Vault Guardian. That being said, unlike fusions and guaranteed champ events, you cannot choose who you get in a 2x event. Even if you get the 10x with the 2x, that really doesn't increase the chances that much, to be honest. If you look at the actual numbers, it really doesn't increase it that much. So to some people, that sounds exciting. They don't know who they're gonna get. It could be the next meta champ, or it could be someone really bad. But they like that sort of excitement. But to other people, it's kind of scary because maybe they think, you know what, I'm not that type of person that's really lucky that often. So I'm not gonna call this a pro or con. It just really depends on the type of luck that you think you generally have. And that ties into the dupe issue. Now, some people don't consider dupes a bad thing because they empower their duplicates, but some people don't like them, like me. I typically don't empower unless I have to, and I might have to now because my champion space is getting really, really low. So I might be forced to empower just because of the space issue, but it depends on how you fall on this issue. But if you like dupes, if you like to empower, then it can be a good thing. But if you're somebody like me who really doesn't like to empower, then dupes are a bad thing. And on to the next issue, that is that dopamine rush. I mean, you don't know who you're gonna get. If you get somebody really good, yeah, you feel that rush. Compare that to a fusion. I mean, you're happy that it's over because you're so tired of doing all those events. So you're glad that it's just done with. And same thing with guaranteed champs. I mean, you know who you're going to get in the end. How much excitement really is there in getting your guaranteed champ? But if you pull that super awesome champ out of like your last sacred shard or your last ancient shard, I mean, that's pretty awesome. So really going for 2x events or even 1x, if you really don't care about the odds, gets you the most dopamine when you actually get that legendary. Now, tied into this is what I'm gonna call like reverse dopamine. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's like heartbreak. When you get somebody you don't want, it really sucks. If you're talking about a fusion, you are gonna get who you want if you can complete all the events, right? No heartbreak there. Same thing with guaranteed champ events. But if we're talking like a 2x event and you don't get anybody you want, or you don't even get any legendary, and you're even in mercy, whatever, it can be really, really heartbreaking. So you get the highs, but potentially you also get the lows. So that's something to consider. If really you play these gacha games for that dopamine rush, then focus on 2x events. That's where you're gonna get it the most. But if you play these games to actually get good at the game and progress your accounts, and you wanna do it in the most efficient way possible, then no, you're not gonna focus on 2x events. You're gonna focus on fusions, or you're gonna focus on guaranteed champ events. All right, guys, that is it for my comparison on fusions, guaranteed champ events, and 2x events. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think, or if there are any pros and cons that I may have missed. So thanks for watching, and if you guys haven't yet, like, subscribe, and share, turn on all notifications, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.